Alex Traiman is here now, CEO and Jerusalem Bureau Chief of the Jewish News Syndicate. Welcome, as always. It's nice to see you, Alex. If Netanyahu agrees to a permanent ceasefire, will Israel be giving up its goal of eliminating Hamas, the terror group?
Oh, absolutely, Marni. Good to see you. I don't think that the prime minister was willing to declare a ceasefire that permits Hamas to stay in power. He has said from the very beginning that he seeks to remove Hamas's military capabilities in the Strip so that they can never again threaten the state of Israel, and also to remove them politically so that you do not have a terrorist organization running the Gaza Strip.
So if not a permanent ceasefire, what would be the next best option?
I think Netanyahu may try to extend the phase one of this deal to try to get back some more hostages in the meantime. Also, I believe that Netanyahu wants to hear more about Trump's recent statements over the last week that he might be willing to help resettle Gazan refugees either in Egypt or in Jordan or elsewhere. And this could really change the dynamic in the Gaza Strip and then come up with a new plan for how to rebuild Gaza and determine who's going to be living there and who runs it on the day after.
But Egypt and others have not been super receptive to receiving Palestinian refugees. How might that conversation go forth?
Well, I think as you've seen since Trump has taken office, he's been using the financial leverage of the United States to make demands on other countries. Both Egypt and Jordan receive tremendous amounts of foreign aid from the United States, as well as are dependent on Israel for intelligence, especially Jordan, for their continued survival as a nation. So I think that Trump will use some of those levers to try to convince Egypt and Jordan to rethink their opposition to resettling refugees.
Much has been made about the prisoners that are being released within Israel, their backgrounds, involvement with the terror group. What more do we know, and how many more in a next phase would look to be released?
Well, Israel's supposed to receive 33 of the 98 hostages that Hamas is holding in exchange for 1,900 prisoners. About 1,000 of those prisoners were taken during the war in Gaza and were probably taken explicitly for the purposes of such an exchange. But another 900 of those prisoners were arrested and sitting in Israeli prisons for acts of terror. And many of those who are being released with blood on their hands, many of them serving consecutive life sentences for murdering Israelis, and they're going back into society. So there's a lot of people in Israel that think that this is an immoral and unjust deal. So even though they're willing to get the hostages back and welcome them with open arms, they're worried about future Jews being murdered by these terrorists.
Finally, Alex, there's also a deal on the table, a bargain that could reshape the Middle East for decades, that would open Israel's diplomatic relations with Saudi Arabia. What more can you share on that?
This is certainly the prize that both Netanyahu and Trump are looking for, to build off of the momentum of the Abraham Accords. That was unable to get done during the Biden administration's tenure. But I do think that the conclusion to this war is an important first step to opening up those relations. I don't see how Saudi Arabia agrees to come in and normalize relations as long as Hamas and the Palestinian question and Iran still remain open questions on the table.
Alex Traiman, always appreciate your perspective. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.